A new star hung low in the night sky. Perhaps it had been there all along, but this was the first time Sarah noticed the flickering golden light. Planets or other celestial bodies appeared in the heavens frequently, passing strangers in the cosmic expanse. This felt different. Sensationalist articles written by machines claimed it to be of alien origin, while scientists quibbled over its trajectory, which had defied those resolute laws of physics that had thus far secured us in our planetary isolation. Neighbors traded hushed whispers in grocery stores and dive bars alike. It was surely a sign that something was coming. This Christmas was shaping up to be peculiar indeed. Sarah scratched the edges of the cast on her forearm while she pondered the expanse. It was a cold night, colder than the last. The colorful lights of the cul-de-sac did little to warm her against the chill. Steam rose up from the snow as Alfie, her golden retriever, completed his business and returned to her side.
You ready to go home?
Alfie stared vacuously up at Sarah as she spoke.
We could follow that star. See where it leads us? A fresh start wouldn't be the worst.
The two walked slowly around the block until they reached Sarah's small one-bedroom home, though that's not the word she would have used to describe it as of late. Each December day grew darker, like the waning of the moon, and her personal life seemed to be following a similar cycle. The cast began to itch again. It had been 2 weeks since the big fight, 2 weeks of lost plans, 2 weeks of silence. Sarah's house stood like a shadowed pool among twinkling lights. There was no reason to put up decorations this year. The thought alone filled her with disgust. Locking the door and warming up Alfie's paws, Sarah listened to the stillness. It had been a long time since she lived alone. There was nothing for it but to brew some coffee and binge another show. Coffee would become cider once she was off the pain meds. Those pills were the only thing keeping her sober, and it was a difficult fight at that. Tonight's show was Ghost Chaser, a paranormal drama from the 90s about a man who spends each episode hunting for the ghost that killed his family. It was a noisy affair, something to offset the silence. It was so noisy, in fact, that Sarah scarcely noticed the rattle of colorful bulbs being untangled in her front yard, or the soft chime of jingle bells skittering around the bushes. Her eyes grew heavy as she nodded off to sleep, with Alfie on the cushions beside. She dreamed of the star above looking down on the world below, biding its time, waiting for the right moment to fulfill the purpose given unto it 2 millennia ago. The festivities were just beginning. A red morning sun hung low on the horizon as Sarah scraped ice from her windshield. Alfie watched longingly from her bedroom window as she toiled. Thin wisps of white steam wafted from a dozen cars up and down Maple Street. Sarah glanced at the other houses. They had all gone overboard for the holidays this year. String lights wrapped tightly around every tree trunk. Figurines and folk art cutouts cluttered the yards. Even the rooftops were crowded with elves, which perched like the gargoyles of ancient cathedrals. Each grinning sentry added to the oppressive atmosphere. Nausea burbled in the pit of Sarah's stomach and up to the back of her throat. Work was a blur of faces. Some frazzled, others cheery. One familiar face flashed between the customers, then vanished into the haze. Whether he was really in the store or simply a manifestation of her tired eyes, she could not say. Only that it was a face she would rather be rid of. So, as she walked back to her car in the eerie light of day's end, Sarah scanned the busy parking lot carefully. If she was truly alone, why didn't it feel that way? High above in the darkening sky, the new star glowed heavy with a warmth that seemed to radiate nostalgia. The pull of a place that no longer exists, the beckoning of a home you cannot return to. Sarah slammed on the brakes as she came to her darkened home. Alfie watched with excitement from the window, but above him hung an invasive strand. Twinkling there in time with the rest was a single string of colored Christmas lights. She pulled into the driveway and stomped across the crisp snow to stand before the intruder.
Who did this?
She called down the empty street.
Joe, are you out there watching? You aren't supposed to be here. Court order, asshole.
With an angry yank, she tore down half the strand with her good arm, then pulled hard as each staple popped out in sequence. A few of the bulbs sparked and shattered against the facade. Alfie whined and ran to paw at the front door. Sarah felt a tight squeeze on her leg, then looked down to see a lighted string was coiling about her calf. As if possessing some sentience, it whipped itself upward, pulling her down into the cold snow. The impact was enough to reawaken freshly healed wounds. As she struggled for control, the thick plastic cord tangled itself around her neck. Just as her consciousness began to fade, it slackened. With a clattering slither, the thing snaked back up the wall. When Sarah opened her eyes, it hung there, as if nothing had happened. Alfie barked in distress as she rushed inside to safety. The next morning shone blinding white through shuttered windows to land stinging across Sarah's eyes. Late! She was going to be late for work. But how could she get to her car without walking past the lights again? Alfie slept peacefully on her bed as she got ready. In the end, she decided it would be best to sneak around the back and exit through the side fence. Alfie zipped through the dog door to follow. With several difficult one-handed shunts, she pulled the gate against the snow and eventually got it open, far enough to squeeze through. A horrific vision awaited as she stepped out onto the driveway. Dozens of lighted creatures filled her lawn. 8 terrible reindeer, 7 smirking elves, and a devilish Santa dressed in the color of blood. Instead of looking outward to the street, each had been placed in such a way that it stared into her bedroom window. Sarah's immediate instinct was to kick them down. With the events of the previous night still lingering, she instead cautiously walked to her car. There was no time to defrost the windshield, so she hopped in and turned the ignition. When she released the parking brake, the car slid backwards down the driveway and slammed into a tree across the street. "Sarah!" A voice called through the window, muffled but familiar. "Can you open the door?" Still shocked from the collision, it took Sarah several seconds to register who was standing beside her. "I'm sorry," he yelled a bit louder in case she couldn't hear him. "About the arm, I mean. I didn't mean to." Sarah recoiled as the initial shock wore off, then scrambled to lock the door. Joe tugged at the handle, then started to walk to the passenger side. "You're special. You know that, right? We have to do this."
You're supposed to be in jail. How are you here?
Joe tried the passenger door as well. When that didn't work, he began to slam on the window.
"I'm here for you, because we have been given the opportunity to save everyone."
Sarah pushed open the door and dashed straight for the house. Alfie was barking and clawing at the gate, desperate to reach her. He began to dig at the frozen dirt below. Halfway up the yard, Sarah felt a sharp stab to her shin, then fell forward in the snow. She rolled over to see that the decorations had surrounded her. They stood unmoving, staring with vacant smiles.
"Don't be scared. They visited me too. All those weeks ago, they arrived from heaven to tell me of our great purpose. You can feel it, can't you? Inside."
Sarah rolled onto her good arm and attempted to stand. Joe lunged forward, pinning her to the ground.
"Just stay still a bit. We don't want to hurt the baby, do we?"
Alfie sent reindeer and elves alike scattering as he clamped down on Joe's arm and began to thrash. The two wrestled in the snow as Sarah clambered up to join the fray. Holding her cast aloft, she kicked violently at his ribs, screaming all the while, until a soft pressure coiled around her chest. The string lights yanked her away, bringing her back down into the snow. Tiny hands and hooves held her there as the cord of twinkling copper and glass constricted around her body. The only option left was to roll, so she rocked herself down the yard until the strand of lights came unplugged. Joe finally pinned Alfie under his arm, then pulled a knife from his pocket and raised it high. The blade came down with a flash. A twinge of pain shot through Sarah's broken arm as the knife bounced off her cast. She kicked him away, then the two made a break for the backyard. Safely inside, with the doors locked, they peeked through the blinds to see if the invaders had followed. Joe slowly waved as the two locked eyes. With the soft jingling of bells, the elves clattered onto the roof. Santa led his reindeer from the neighbor's yard, dragging an empty nativity manger behind them. They placed it beside Joe, then surrounded the display and kneeled in reverence. Sarah felt something squirm deep inside her. That was impossible. She had taken tests after the fight to make sure. 2,000 years ago, it watched as a new dawn changed humanity forever. Joe spread his arms in exultation. Now, we have been chosen to bring salvation to another world. Your child will spread his teachings across the galaxy. Bright morning sky turned to darkness as the wandering star sank low on the horizon. With an echoing thrum, it grew larger and larger, eclipsing the sun itself. It was no star, it was a ship, moving in slighted angles that defied the laws of physics, a massive golden saucer which rotated slowly as it hovered above the city. Intricate pipeworks webbed across its surface, wrapped in twinkling lights of green and red. Sarah sat shaking as one by one her neighbors left their homes and gathered together in a circle on the lawn. Holding hands, they sang with piping inhuman voices while smiling up at their alien god. "Stay inside. Keep yourself warm. You will be the mother of the intergalactic Messiah." Sarah couldn't help but stare at the glowing golden light, to feel the warm pull of the place she had been but could never return to. A small whisper of a note left her lips. She wanted to sing with them. "All shall know his justice and mercy. Every star in the heavens will fall at his feet. This year, we shall finally put the Christ back in Christmas."